Welcome to the archive, Paul. How you doing today?
Great, how are you?
Fantastic. Thank you for asking. All right, man. So how many years now have you been in the Renaissance Fair?
I have been performing at Renaissance Fair since '94, and I've been jousting for the past 19 years.
Lovely. So what got you start doing this?
So, like I said, I've been performing and doing sword combat work since my senior year of high school. And then I met a buddy of mine. He's like, hey, do you want to learn how to ride a horse? I'm like, sure, that's the next thing a knight would do. And then it was just a downward spiral of bad decisions from there.
All right. All right. And funny enough, you play the villain in this show.
Sometimes. It all depends.
It all depends.
Yeah. We go back and forth, and it's really like good guys and bad guys. We're just tournament knights going out, and, you know, if you can make the audience have a good time with it, it's all that really matters.
Yeah. Cool, man. Cool. So what's like the appeal of wanting to learn about medieval horseback and combat and wearing armor?
So I've got my undergraduate degree in medieval history as well. And, you know, it's taking that historical aspect of what a knight would do and how they would fight and how they would compete on horseback, and then trying to adjust that to be for an audience. Because we can't make it purely historically accurate because, well, A, it'd be boring, and B, it'd be dangerous. And so, you know, we try to take that historical thing, turn it a little bit, and make it entertaining.
Yeah. So what about a real real jousting, or the real stuff that would become so much more boring to a live audience in the modern era?
So it would be it could be, you never know, a lot more time, a lot more passes before something actually happens. So it's like they could be hitting each other for a while and nothing actually happens. So, or they're doing such intricate things that unless you really know the ins and outs of the sport, it's like watching a fencing match. It's like, sure, that looks neat, but unless you're an educated fencer, you have no idea really what you're watching.
Okay, so just a bunch of fancy tricks that people really know very little about.
Exactly.
Yeah. So back then, since you're a medieval historian, were festivals kind of like this? Like there'd be real fights, and were they big? They were the rock stars at the time?
Yeah, it was the WWE of the Middle Ages. It really was. So a tournament like this would come to town, and that was your entertainment, because there really wasn't much else for peasants to do. So there would be a number of different types of tournaments, lasting many days, in day and night. So sword fighting, axe fighting, different types of combat, and then the evenings there would even be dancing and competitions of the court. So whoever won the joust wasn't just always the best fighter, it was also who impressed the ladies of the court, who treated themselves very well at court. And then the big is the tournament, is the joust. And that's what everyone comes out and watches.
That's cool, man. He was totally creeping behind you.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right. So, I mean, so people know pretty much it's like, okay, you guys are going to get these lances out and you're going to joust with them and show off some very impressive tricks, like being able to catch a small ring. You said axes. Like, there's other weapons that these guys would be using.
So, on horseback during tournament, they usually wouldn't use swords. They would use heavy wooden batons and actually beat the snot out of each other with these heavy wooden batons until someone fall.
Oh, wow. So, bludgeoned by a billy club.
Yes, heavier than a billy club.
Okay.
And those are the types of combat. You have 8 to 20 people on the field on horseback, all fighting at once, in amongst each other, swinging these heavy clubs at each other. And so a lot of other classic medieval weapons were fought on the ground. On horseback during tournament, you either had batons or you're doing lances and shields, or lances against shields that were then bolted to your breastplate.
Okay. So it's kind of like, in some ways, sort of the opening of Excalibur, when they were all, just to give people an idea.
Ish. Yes, very, very similar. The other big difference is that, so when we joust for these shows, we have a big shield we're holding. And that was only really popular during the 10th, 11th, even the start of the 12th centuries. It was very early on. After that, for tournaments, they would have large shields bolted to them, and you're actually aiming for the other person and to try to knock them off.
Okay. Okay. So you're wearing a shield.
Yes.
And someone's going to try and clip you off that way.
Yes.
All right. So,
And there's tactics of, as you lower your lance, you can deflect their lance slightly out of the way to get them. Or you hope that you're more on point than they are, because with momentum and physics, where you hit on that shield is if they're going to just be knocked back in the saddle or if they're going to be knocked back 20 feet.
okay. So someone could get launched playing wild.
Oh, yeah.
Wild.
Okay. Well, because also the horses are moving at a full canter. So they're moving 15 to 20 miles an hour.
Okay.
So that's the two of them coming together and the force of the armored knight as well.
All right. And
So
that's compared to what speed that you guys move at.
the speed is about the same. So, but you think of that force and that energy. So when we have a shield, that force and that energy is deflected off and behind us, as opposed to right against your body.
All right. So, wow. I knew how to put on shows back then.
Yeah, because the difference of what we're doing is more theatrical. Is we know what's going on. It's scripted. We have an outline of, like, on this pass, this is going to happen. On this pass, this is going to happen. On this pass, you're going to get hit and fall down. So that way it's safer, because I need to do it again in a couple hours, and I need to do it again tomorrow. But back in the day, tournament, I don't care if you're able to do it again tomorrow. And I'm not sure if I care if I can do it again tomorrow, because I want to win to get the prize. Okay. So you're putting everything into it.
Okay.
Many knights died and many nobles died in a joust.
Okay. So, yeah, so I mean, like, that's definitely a wild thing. What would be, like, the prizes that people would do this stuff for?
Gold.
Gold. So, like...
Usually money and gold.
So this would also be like playing lottery back then?
Well, it's more of be professional sport. So who's better than everyone else in the area in these sports would really win the better prize.
So, like, in today's money, like, how much would somebody be winning?
That's debatable, but it's the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands.
Okay.
Because what they would usually do for the prizes is a goldsmith would then make some statuesque or something, a cross or a statue out of gold, and that would be your prize. And then I would just melt that down for coinage.
Okay. Yeah. All right, man. So what got you interested in wanting to learn more about this to a degree?
Oh, it's fun as heck. Because, ever since a little kid, you're then reading about knights and reading about the stories of old and Arthur and what happened to the actual historic knights and what was the differences and everything else. So you then learn, all right, what did they really do? How did they really act? How did they really fight? All of that stuff.
Okay. And so, like today's, there's some people that say this is sort of like the medieval age is done right. Like, what other safety precautions do you guys take that were not around at that time?
A lot of it's rehearsal.
Okay.
So, like I said, we know what's happening. And using shields, the lances that break in our shows are meant to break. So it's theatrical. But the solid lances that hit are solid lances. And, we've all gotten injured doing this. We all can rattle off lists of injuries. But it's still, it's like any kind of stunt work. One done right, it's awesome. One done wrong, it hurts. And just like any stunt work for film, TV, theater, it's you rehearse. Things always go whichever way, but you try to do your best to do it as safely as possible.
So, yeah, and today it looked like you guys, everything went really well and you were all super happy.
Well, no one died, so...
And so back then it was pretty common for people to die in events like this.
Not so much die, but also get really injured. It's possible, and even today it's possible, but it's also to get severely injured is much more likely back then because what they're using is much heavier lances, much thicker lances, and a lot of times too they would have metal tips on them. And depending on the style of joust you're using is if how many points that metal tip would have, if it's a rounded tip, if it's a pointed tip. So yeah, that's the other difference, that all of ours just have solid wood at the end. So we're hitting with that. We're not trying to hit with a metal piece.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So, also from when you started, are you finding people nowadays are more interested in wanting to learn about this stuff also?
Yes and no. Like not as much, but you always find pockets all over and different random performers, random actors, and want to learn. And as I'm doing more and more in the horse world, and so there's a lot more equestrians who are getting interested, and then they realize, like, wait a minute, that's just a step sideways from the mounted games that we do. I'm like, yes, because all of your mounted games are based off of medieval combat.
Wow.
Dressage is based off of medieval combat, and then cavalry war.
Wow. Okay. And very interesting. So you, within the time that you started doing this, are you finding that Renaissance fairs are growing, or people are more interested now?
It's very interesting. It was definitely on a decline, and then after the pandemic, everyone wanted to be out and doing stuff, and then it's just been growing ever since. And so I'd say in the last 2 or 3 years, nearly every show we're at has had a steady growth. And so people are just enjoying being out more. So
cool. All right, man. Any fun facts you want to share as a historian?
My horse makes 35 pounds of poo a day.
All right, man. Any message you have for future generations?
Get a nice, safe computer job.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.